terms of what can be done. But I want just to pick on, there was the lawyer student who talked about the constitution and that it is being vacated. And I wanted to combine that concern with the concern of political education. I wish it is possible. First of all, I think civic education must be systematized, or political education. It can't be something of ad hoc, like, you know, you go there, you go there, you go there. I think there has to be an arrangement so that one can account for every ward, and there are about 14, 50 wards, so that at least we know that, you know, to ensure that this negative ethnicity, this, you know, bribery during elections and all that stuff, people get to another level, like how the Gen Zs go to another level. And so the Gen Zs and so on, we, you know, that civic education, political education, whatever one wants to call it, sometimes voter, you know, all that is done, you know, very profusely within the country. And if, for example, there are like about 18 law schools, if we could get a summary of the constitution translated into every language within our country, and maybe that's something that the diaspora would be interested to work with some of those schools to do that. I think that can be the basis of also civic education or political education. And then that translation, also the illustrations are about the problems that are existing, whether it is in health, whether it is in, you know, education, you know, all those issues that have a place within the constitution, integrity and so on. And I think the last thing that I wanted to say, there are groups like the coordinating committee working very vigorously. You know, other groups, you know, working. So I think it's important for those groups to actually have a common meeting, because when they meet together, then they begin to, you know, understand each other more deeply, and they now see the necessity of having to have a joint effort. And I think that is normally what works, because they're positive groups and they're working from different spaces. Now it is time for them now to consider, you know, getting an issue, and then, you know, coming together. And from there, they can now very urgently, like when somebody asks, what are we waiting for? We are waiting for ourselves. Thank you very much, Marge. And thank you, Miguna. Thank you, Motiora, Steve, all the people who have been here. And Marge, it was beautiful that even with imminent attack, you are able to sustain us to the very end. God bless.
Thank you so much, Professor, for sharing and for joining us. And we look forward to other discussions. So, Barikiwe. Steve, are you able to now before? Yes, go on.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. I've been listening intently. I was just trying to get on the other time you gave me permission, but my mic was not working. I would like to just focus on a few issues that have been raised. The first one I've just realized is there's a call for us to unite. And this maybe goes back to what I said earlier about a freedom charter. I realize that Gen Z, the term Gen Z is right now in Kenya being bandied around by political, operatives. They're trying to use it just to describe the youth, because the youth is perceived to be a rich voter basket, which it is truly. You could see now people like Dennis Itumbi calls young people to KICC and says, these are Gen Z. You can see Kalonzo is making a lot of effort. Whenever he talks, he never finishes without saying Gen Z. He's trying to tap into that. And you can see also Raila Odinga and his camp ODM, sending out people like Robert Alai and Gaucho to get Kasmil Makure. We're all trying to tap into Gen Z with the perception, trying to create the perception that Gen Z is just another moniker for youth. But what we are saying here is that Gen Z movement, or this movement as we call it, Gen Zote, is not about age. It's about the values that bring us together, which is about giving birth to a new Kenya that is completely different from what we've had before since independence. because otherwise we risk this being just like another thing that can be hijacked by anyone who passes by. The other thing I'd like to highlight there is that uniting at what cost? And I'm glad that Professor Kivuta Kimana is here, someone I really admire from my days. When he was agitating for NCC in the 90s, I was in high school. But I used to read a lot of newspapers and I could see the amount of work he was doing. And all of you know a bit of history from the 2002, which most of you are awake to, is that when they were forming Rainbow Coalition, LDP came away, of course, with the KANU luminaries, and they moved over to Rainbow to form the coalition with the sole intent of defeating Moi's candidate Uhuru. And at that time, we were just focused on getting rid of Moism in all its form. But in so doing, we compromised. We let people like George Saitoti, Kalonzo Musyoka, Joseph Kamudo, Mudi Awori come out of KANU and join the opposition and then be part of the next government in Rainbow Coalition. So we sort of lowered the barrier a bit. And in so doing, you see what happened. Kibaki was in charge. And as much as we like him for what he did for the economy, but for you who know it, he frustrated the formation of a new constitution. The Bomas draft, as it was worked, was revised, so many times to accommodate, to be watered down, to accommodate what Kibaki's team wanted. And then, of course, we had the 2010 constitution, which is a good document in itself. Of course, there are lots of things that we can revise, but it's good enough. But the worst thing that happened is that after the 2013 election, we had Ruto and Uhuru now being the first custodians of the new constitution. And that was a tragedy because these are people who had opposed that constitution. And now they're in charge. And you can see what we have about a decade later is we have people who don't have the political goodwill to reap the true benefits and fruits of this new constitution. So how is that relevant to what I'm speaking now? I would like to know whether the movement of this moment right now, moving forward, are we going to be considering Puritanism in terms of getting candidates who truly espouse a pro-people Kenya, a new Kenya that we want? Or we're going to be pragmatic like we did in 2002 when we went for all and sundry as long as they brought some form of political constituency on board. For instance, right now, we see the likes of people who are just forming themselves into political formations in Kenya right now. We can see the likes of, Martha Karua. She has had joint presses, in recent days with the likes of course, Professor Kibwana here and Mkisa Kitui. I don't know whether there's a political formation going on there. I'm sure maybe it's just agitating for what's happening right now. Maybe Professor may be able to rejoin on that before he leaves. We also have the likes of Team Ground, Babu Wino and Gathoni Wamshomba. Of course, we have the remnants of the Azimio coalition, Kalonzo, Eugene, Kioni. Of course, all those are people who would like to sort of have the Gen Z, this movement behind them in one way or another. Are we saying then that we're going to do the same thing they did in 2002 because we are so desperate to kick out a dictator that we will sort of do a bit of compromise to get us to another level, to just get him out before we're able now to go for the kind of Puritan state that we want? I'd like us to look at that. The other thing I'd like to consider as I wind up is that we need to have a shrewd mindset. The Bible, I'm a good student of the Bible, and it says in Luke 16, verse 8, that it is true that the children of this world are more shrewd in dealing with the world around them than the children of the light. And that is what we are truly. In terms of our advancement of constitutionalism and democracy, we've done quite well. But in terms of political savviness, we seem to be building from ground up every other time. Like now, we are literally trying to build from ground up. Why don't we identify a way of having a salient, growing political movement that every political cycle, we are literally building on that, not starting from ground up. For instance, now we are saying we want to go out and get the dictator out by sheer people power. Good planning is always multidimensional, not one-dimensional. We say, yes, that is the greatest desire. Let's get the dictator out. But what if we don't? What if we don't succeed? And Professor Kivuta Kimana has sort of aligned to that. He said, maybe it's not easy to get rid of this dictator. What if it doesn't happen? Do we have plan B and C? Having a plan B and C is not accepting that your main plan is not going to work. It's actually being prudent. It's being a good custodian of the people's trust. You must have plan B and C so that you don't find yourself stranded if you're not able to achieve plan A. So we succeed in getting rid of the dictator, well and good. Do we have a plan after that? That's why I proposed at that time when I had another sitting like this one, that we need an advisory council. We get 7, 9, or 11 eminent Kenyans, the likes of Professor Kibana here, can sit in that committee, who will sort of advise us to the movement, and who in our minds, if all the checks and balances of the political system fail in terms of having a succession handover to maybe the president goes and his deputy, maybe the speaker, if he's not able to take over, then we know we have what we call what can become like a constitution, a transitional government from that group of advisors. Number two, if we don't succeed in removing Ruto from power now, then we should have a plan for us to removing in 2027 elections. And that involves us being actively involved in formation of the new IEBC and mobilizing towards having a strong candidate in 2027. Of course, from the ones I've mentioned. Number three, if we don't win the election in 2027, does it mean that that's it? Now we are back again, consoling each other and mourning? No. We should make sure that in that election, we at least have a few MPs elected to parliament who are pro-people, who can form the vanguard of this new revolution, so that we have a voice in parliament that is very active. Maybe 50 MPs, maybe 10 senators, if we can manage. Those one will be like the core that now will be able to move others forward for us to have a bigger group in 2032, so that we don't keep rebuilding from ground up every time. Lastly, I would like to say that I had something else to say, but maybe I'll share this later. But lastly, I'd like to say that in terms of where we are right now, I can see lots of youths mobilizing for 11/11. They want to go to the streets on 11/11. I've not heard anyone mentioning about 11/11 in this conversation today. Maybe we should be looking forward to the fact that they actually want to reintroduce Finance Bill 2024. John Mbadi said that, or maybe Finance Bill 2025. We must look forward towards that and how we're going to counter that, because people are already overtaxed as we speak. And we should have demands on the table ready even before it's brought on the table. For instance, we should be saying loudly, and we are saying the same, that stop killings, stop abductions. You cannot kill us and lead us. Number two, we are saying no taxation without representation. So we are saying that you must form IEBC, so we have the opportunity to throw out these MPs who are not representing the people's interest. That one we must be given. Number three, no taxation without accountability. Ruto said before the elections that he was going to deal firmly and decisively with corruption and state capture. He has not dealt with that. If anything, his family, the people around him have benefited from state contracts, including Shift, Shah, and now we are being told about Adani JK and all that, and these people are in it. So that is state capture, and he has not dealt with it. So we are saying there's no need of taxing us and then using the money in a way that is not accountable. Same thing when Mbadi said that we need to begin a debt audit of our country debt. How is that going on? Is there a report on that? How is that progressing? How much debt we owe? We need to be told. So these are the things that we need to put on the table, make them very clear, and make sure that we are proactive, not reactive. When you're reactive, you're always trying to chase something, and you can be chasing so many things. But when you're proactive, you set the conversation. Thank you so much. God bless, and thank you for listening to me.
Thanks so much, Steve, for coming on board to share with us. As we close, Muthiura, let me just give you some 2 minutes, and then Daktari closes. Yeah.
Okay, I would like to say that NCCPA has established that Kenyans agree that William Ruto has breached his oath of office. We've determined that he's lost willful consent, public trust, favor, and legitimacy to continue to serve in the position he holds today. So we hold that Ruto must go. And as Steve has said, we do not have to start from scratch. There's a charter, and I've shared it here. So after the conversation, you can go through it. We are encouraging people to interact with it, to enrich it, and of course, to show up. Professor said that we need to translate our constitution into the vernacular languages so it can be understood even by people on the ground. And I would like to say that there is work that Githurai Social Justice Center has done. They've developed an app where the constitution has been so far translated into 4 languages, and they're appealing to Kenyans to come together, especially those who are good at Sheng, so we can have the constitution in Sheng. So this is the kind of work that these social movements are doing out there that would like Kenyans to plug in We usually do this collectively when we meet every Monday. Now, I say that we've been given space by NRA. NRA has not forced itself to be leading this process. It's ordinary Kenyans who are doing this, nor has Okiya Omtata done that. And Professor Kivuda Kibwana was part of a process before 2022 that had brought together progressive political parties and social movements. And he knows how far we had gone with that process. And I would urge him to come back and right now try to offer leadership together with those other Kenyans who have already volunteered themselves. So step up. Let us make sure that these leaders who have breached their oath of office and fidelity to the Constitution do not get an opportunity to make things worse than they already are. Thank you very much, Marge, for this forum. And thank you, Patriots. Let's soldier on.
Thank you so much, Mudira. And now we get to Dr. Please, your closing remarks.
Oh, thank you, Marge. It's been quite enlightening, quite inspirational, and very revolutionary. I thank everybody that has contributed. It was good to hear from Amenya, Muthiora, and Professor in particular, but also Jelani and others. This is what I would like to say based on what I have had. Number one, and this is based on my experience and also readings, do not let anybody tell you that speaking is bad, that we just speak, and do nothing. In any free society, and Kenya, we want to make Kenya a free, democratic society governed by the rule of law. Speaking is the basis of gauging democracy. There will be no democracy if we don't speak. Don't allow anybody to muzzle you. Don't let anybody tell you that X Spaces or social media is useless and whatnot, and yet they are on TV every day. They are on rallies and funerals every weekend. They just don't want you to speak. They want to muzzle your voice. So I'm going to encourage everybody, keep speaking, no matter, especially when they tell you that speaking is useless. Don't let somebody tell you that you're speaking too much, that you need to do anything else. Speech is action. Speech is something. So that's number one. Embrace speech. Make your speech be empowering. Use social media robustly and vibrantly, and continue to participate in these spaces. Because during the revolutionary movements that we've been talking about historically, they didn't have this fora, the social media fora. They didn't have Facebook, they didn't have Twitter or X, they didn't have Instagram, they didn't have TikTok, they didn't have YouTube. And all they were doing, if they were able, is to use radio, shortwave radio, and pamphlets. It was very difficult to reach their cadre or the populace. So we have a way of reaching the populace directly. Let's use it without excuses. Number two, let's avoid cynicism, fatalism, and exasperation. Let's say, oh, he's too strong. He's killing everybody. We will not succeed. It's taken so long. We've just been going round and round in circles. We've lost space. We have not lost anything. There are all these societies that we've been talking about that led revolutions and transformed their societies, were oppressed sometimes for hundreds of years. Slavery lasted for 400 years, for God's sake. It did not just end overnight. So let's not talk as if freedom's liberation struggle is a wedding procession. The South Africans only removed the apartheid system after 100 years. Colonialism itself in Kenya did not end overnight. So we cannot be exasperated. We cannot be fatalistic. We cannot adopt the cynic attitude. That's number 2. Number 3, I agree with Amenya. We cannot unite just for the sake of unity. And we cannot be told that when we have evidence of Ruto having imposed or attempted to infiltrate the movement using certain characters we know, that there is something wrong calling them out. We must be vigilant. We must expose all infiltrators, no matter how they try to project themselves to be. Infiltration is a sophisticated process. To be able to infiltrate a movement, you must pretend to be part of the movement. You must pretend very honestly to be fighting the government. For the government to pay you, they must make sure that you are good enough to be accepted by the other side. So the people they brought to infiltrate our movement are quite good. We are not saying they are not good. Otherwise, they would not have infiltrated it. But they did. And in many societies, revolutionaries are murdered by infiltrators. Sankara was killed by Kompore, whom he thought was his brother, whom he grew up with, that he started the revolution with. Who killed Malcolm X, a black man who belonged to the Nation of Islam? I mean, who killed Martin Luther King? Who has killed all the revolutionaries, if you remember? Who killed Trotsky in Mexico? Who killed Che Guevara? So this is historical. Who killed Jesus Christ, for God's sake? So the fact is, do not lose or be lazy or give excuses for infiltrators, because it's easy to be destroyed and to be sabotaged by an infiltrator than by Ruto. Because only the infiltrator will tell him what we are discussing when we go to closed door discussions, or what we are planning when we go to closed door discussions. So we must be able to expose them. That's number 3. Number 4. So let's be vigilant. Number 4, let's not be classist. Every member of the movement, every revolutionary is the same. There is no eminent or less eminent. I understand what my brother Amenya was trying to say, that we need advisors and whatnot. No, advisors are part of the movement. They are not more eminent than others. The moment we stop talking in a classist language, we become full revolutionaries, because we are not going to judge people based on their titles, academic or otherwise, based on how much money they have, based on how articulate they are, based on the positions they hold in society, based on age or gender, based on any other identifiable characteristics. Let us be judged by the quality of our contributions, by the commitment that we give to the movement, not because we have held positions before. Because after all, in Kenya, you only hold positions because you are favored, not because you're the most qualified, not because you contribute more than anybody else, not because you come with the most original, creative, innovative ideas to transform society. That's not why people are even elected into office. So I get wary when we emphasize more on elections in a completely tyrannical society. A society where parliament is nothing really but an extension of state house. Let nobody lie to you that any parliamentarian or senator is doing anything substantive to Kenya. None, zero, none of them. That's a fact. Because if they do, I need to see the bill they brought and passed into law that has transformed any aspect of our lives. Give me one example. Any of them? None. All the laws are debaucheries. All the laws are retrogressive. All the laws have not served the Kenyan popular interest. So how come we don't hear them on the floor of parliament opposing these laws? How come they are only vocal once the laws have been passed and the public are up in arms? How come? None of them. How come they have not brought bills, even if they are shot down in parliament, but at least we see them arguing out these bills in parliament? How come? How come none of them opposed Finance Bill 2024 until the Genzote took to the streets? How come? So I don't want us to have any illusion about the leaders, so-called, that we have. And yes, I agree with Amenya also, it's not generational. And I think if Professor Kibutha also said, this leadership, true revolutionary leadership, is not about age. It's not about class. It's not about religion. It's not about region where you come from. It's not about gender. It has to be based on vision, the political transformative vision that you have. And lastly, what is it that we need to do? What is it that we need to do? If you set yourself a goal and you say, if I don't meet this goal, I do this, you will fail. Never set two goals for yourself. When you go to do an exam and it is a competitive exam, you are aiming to pass. If you say, if I don't pass, I will do this, you will fail. Because you have allowed your head to give you an option higher than what you should attain. So when you go to war, you must fight to win. You can, at the back of your mind, be considering, in the event that I lose, what do I do? Never articulate it publicly, because then you're setting up yourself. You've even told your enemy you are considering failure. So your enemy knows that failure is an option for you. Your enemy will be fighting you with the aim of winning, because they know you have a level at which you will surrender. But if you go to war like there is no surrender, the enemy will succumb, because the enemy knows there is no retreat if they don't surrender. So I would rather go to this war with only one aim in purpose, that Ruto is going. And the second aim would be, once we remove Ruto, what do we do with the state called Kenya? We transform it. Then we can now discuss the mechanics of transformation. How does this new state look like? That we can discuss. But we cannot discuss that Ruto is not going to go. What kind of war is that? Then I finish. The name. I think we have to come up with a name. I think that is an attractive proposal. And I think that it is something we should discuss. I also think we should discuss something about the charter and then discuss what is it that we call it. Do we call it Freedom Charter like South Africa, because freedom and charter does not belong to anybody? Or do we call it Liberation Charter? Whatever it is that it is supposed to be called. Let's synthesize whatever the other group that Mothiora is working with has come up with, and then see if we can have a joint effort. So I'm going to be proactive here. I'm going to invite Jelani, Amenya, Professor Kivutha Kibwana, Maj, and Muthiora to DM me, and we work on something so that in the next space, we can decide how we are going to unveil it. And then the mechanics of what we are going to propose on how this organization is going to organize itself, or the movement, in terms of just real hard work in terms of organization and also mobilization, with the aim of what everybody agrees is Ruto must go. That way we will be very concrete. I have to emphasize the reason why I'm suggesting this is that the meeting that is taking place in Nairobi is a physical meeting. It excludes a lot of people. There are people in the diaspora who want to participate who cannot participate. Then there are people who are in the villages who cannot participate, but they can participate online the way I'm suggesting. And so that we also include everybody, all elements, including people who do not feel comfortable working within that structure that they have set up. Thank you very much. I hope I have made sense. And I wish everybody a good evening. Viva!
Thank you so much, General, and thanks everyone who chimed in, the speakers and the listeners who stayed with us for over 3 hours. Much has been said. I do not have more to add on to. I'd just like to really encourage you to keep fighting because it's not really easy. The government has set us in a state of, fighting for governance every day while they sit pretty and loot, while they come and mock us, going to pay the youth that they keep unemployed, knowing very well they're going to come them to play the revolution song and they dance to it. It's really the highest form of mockery I've seen from a president doing to his fellow citizens. So I really say it's a sad time to be a Kenyan. But let's not give up hope. Let's really keep fighting, but nevertheless try to keep sane. And for the youths that are fighting without, the times are difficult and there's no money. If you get your hands on some little money, don't look for the big business there. I'd encourage you to really just don't shy off from these small jobs that you have. Like if you're still at home and you could as well also make as you fight for your freedom for the next job. Try to find a way, even if you're just cooking at home and selling the lunch as you move away. You're doing the civic education. That way you become more independent and you don't fall into the trap of people trying to buy you because they'll keep wanting to buy others. So we need to just be vigilant. Don't give up hope because as they try to ship out the youth, their interest here is being agencies getting money. They'll come and tell you, oh, you don't need to pay, because what they are not telling you is that the companies abroad are paying them. So they don't care. They're supposed to be creating jobs at home. They're not creating jobs at home. They're really just making money out of you. But it's the Kenya that you have. And in most countries in the West, they're even turning against the other people because life is hard everywhere. But we have a government that's actually at the moment tearing apart our country. And I'm very glad, at least in many countries, in the US, there's an election coming up. There's an election coming up soon in Germany. And the government that actually, when we called them out, and I'm glad this is being recorded, we called them out when people are being killed. We tried to tell them help and help and help. No, what was important for them is signing a bilateral agreement. But God pays back because that government, some of them have started resigning here and they're going to lose very terribly. The only thing that is going to help them is that the other party is really worse. So let's not give up hope because the German government is already being punished as we speak because God has a way of finding an equilibrium. So comrades, as you go out there, don't be afraid. Fight for your rights. You have a right to education. You have a right to healthcare. You have a right to many things. Let's keep fighting. Thanks again, and God bless you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Marge. Have a good night. Good morning to those beginning their day. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.